Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive, and a huge thanks to Dulaxi for sponsoring this one. You guys are awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, so today we are going to be talking about Michellar,
Very cool.
a San Francisco artist who is, up and coming, really making waves with her emotional storytelling and these, captivating melodies.
Yeah.
We're going to be focusing specifically on her single, He's a Killer, which was released on December 26, 2024.
Okay.
And it's just a fascinating blend of Michellar's own personal journey, and then you've got like this touch of Chris Stapleton influence in there, and then this really cool cross-state recording process.
Right. And it's interesting how all of that comes together, seamlessly across state lines. It speaks to, her vision and the folks involved.
Yeah.
It all came together so well.
So let's talk about this opening.
Okay.
That first guitar chord, it's not just an intro.
Right.
It's a statement.
Yeah, totally. It's like setting the tone, for the entire song. And then the guitar never really fades away.
Right.
It's always kind of weaving in and out, and it's really driving that emotional landscape. It's almost like a character.
Yes. And speaking of character, Lloyd Miller's vocals are just
Oh my God.
incredible. There's this strength and this richness to his voice, and it almost converses with the guitar.
It's a dialogue, isn't it? And then you add the backup vocals in, and it just adds this texture that makes the sound so much fuller and dynamic.
Yeah, and then there's the production itself.
Right.
Which was finalized in Texas.
Yes.
And it really lets each element stand out, the vocals, the guitar, even the drums, but doesn't feel overproduced.
Yeah. It's got this nice rawness to it.
So break down this production magic a little bit for me. What is it that makes it so special?
Well, take the drums, for example. They're not just keeping time,
Right.
There's this rhythm that feels very deliberate, even a bit organic, but it's never overwhelming.
Right.
It really adds to the energy of the song without, kind of stealing the show. You can tell that there was a lot of care put into crafting that balance.
It's like finding that sweet spot between structure and improvisation. There's a framework there, but it also feels like there's room to breathe and let those little moments of spontaneity come through.
Exactly. And it's that interplay between the instruments that really keeps you hooked.
Yes.
You've got the driving force of that guitar, the heartbeat-like pulse of the drums, and then Lloyd Miller's voice just soaring over it all. It creates this dynamic that keeps you on the edge of your seat.
And it's interesting how they maintain that energy throughout the entire song.
Yeah.
There's this constant build, this feeling of being swept along by the music.
And Lloyd Miller's vocals never waver. He stays strong and steady throughout, and the instrumentation keeps adding these layers. It's like brushstrokes on a canvas. And the backup vocals come in at just the right moments to add these touches of harmony that just really enrich the whole soundscape.
It's you never quite know what's coming next, but it's going to be good.
It's true.
It's almost like this conversation between the instruments and the vocals, each element responding to the other.
Yeah.
I love that. Pushing and pulling, creating this tapestry of sound.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes Michellar so compelling, this ability to create these sonic conversations, these narratives that unfold through the music.
And it reminds me of something you mentioned earlier about her being a visual artist too. Her album art is her own work.
Yes.
It's it adds another dimension to the whole experience,
Absolutely. It shows how she's thinking about the music visually as well as sonically.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about the sounds, but about the overall atmosphere, the feeling that she's trying to evoke.
It's she's creating this world that you step into, and the visuals are just part of that world.
Exactly. A complete artistic experience. And it's fascinating how she weaves those different elements together. And speaking of weaving things together,
yeah,
the whole San Francisco, Texas connection is really intriguing.
Right. You've got the reference track from San Francisco where she's based, and then the recording and mixing happens in Texas.
Right.
It's these two different creative energies coming together.
And it makes you wonder, if there's a subtle influence from those different locations in the music itself, maybe there's a touch of that San Francisco vibe in the song's structure, and then the Texas studio brought out some of that raw energy in the performance.
It's like a musical road trip, picking up these influences along the way.
Exactly. And it all comes together so cohesively. It really is a testament to Michellar's vision and her ability to collaborate with these different artists and studios to achieve that final sound.
So we've talked about the vocals, the instrumentation, the production, but what really grabs you about He's a Killer? What makes it stand out for you personally?
For me, it's the raw emotion that comes through. You can feel the vulnerability in Lloyd Miller's voice, but there's also this strength there, this sense of resilience. The song is acknowledging the pain, the hurt, but it's also refusing to be defined by it.
It's like this balance between fragility and power.
Exactly. And that's something that I think a lot of people can relate to. We all experience those moments of heartbreak, those times when we feel broken, but we also find a way to pick ourselves up and keep going. And I think He's a Killer captures that beautifully.
Yeah, it's that emotional honesty that makes it so compelling, and it makes you wonder about the inspiration behind the song. Did Michellar ever talk about, what drove her to create this piece?
It's interesting from what I've gathered, Michellar is quite private when it comes to sharing, specific details about her personal life.
Yeah.
She prefers to let the music speak for itself and allow listeners to interpret it in their own way.
That's a really powerful approach. It allows the listener to, find their own meaning in the music, connect with it on a deeper level.
And it creates a sense of mystery, which can be quite engaging. It makes you want to listen more closely to try and decipher the hidden messages within the song.
So for someone who's just discovering Michellar's music, what's the one thing that they should know about her and what she brings to the table?
I'd say she's an artist who's not afraid to be vulnerable, to explore complex emotions in her music. She's got this incredible knack for blending raw feeling with incredible musicality. It's a combination that's hard to resist.
Absolutely. And He's a Killer is a perfect example of that. It's a song that stays with you long after you've heard it. It's thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It's emotionally resonant, and it leaves you wanting more.
It's interesting how the song's title, He's a Killer, adds another layer to that mystery.
Right.
It's such a bold statement, and it immediately sparks all these questions.
Like, who is this killer?
Yeah.
What makes him so dangerous? Is it literal, or is there something more metaphorical going on?
Exactly. It makes you think about the different ways someone can be a killer, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally.
Right.
It could be about someone who's toxic, manipulative, who leaves a trail of destruction in their wake.
Yeah, it definitely adds this element of intrigue, and it makes you pay closer attention to the lyrics, trying to piece together those clues.
And that's the beauty of Michellar's songwriting. She doesn't spell everything out for you.
Right.
She leaves space for interpretation for the listener to bring their own experiences and perspectives to the music.
It's like she's inviting you to participate in the storytelling process,
Exactly. She's not just handing you a finished product. She's giving you the building blocks and letting you create your own meaning.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into He's a Killer, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will take away from this conversation?
I hope they'll be inspired to go listen to the song and to really immerse themselves in Michellar's world. She's an artist who deserves to be heard, and He's a Killer is a really powerful introduction to her unique sound and vision.
It's a reminder that music can be so much more than just entertainment.
Yeah.
It can be a mirror reflecting our own experiences, a window into someone else's soul, and a catalyst for deep thought and conversation.
Beautifully said, and Michellar's music certainly does all of that and more.
So to all our listeners out there, do yourselves a favor and check out Michellar's music. You won't be disappointed. And a huge thanks again to Dulaxi for sponsoring this deep dive. We couldn't do it without you.
Until next time, keep those ears open for new discoveries.
Happy listening.